In today's video, we're going to talk through some of the scams and shenanigans that occurred out at the National, do a bit of a debrief. I'll share my thoughts on some of the things, some tips and tricks on how you can best protect yourself from, falling victim to some of these yourself. And then we can go from there and chat through in the comments as per usual. Now, I want to give this caveat at the very start. I'm not being negative with this video. Obviously, this is some of the bad that happened at the National. I want to use this as a learning point for each of you, but keep in mind, obviously, a lot of really positive and really cool things happened out at the National. There's a lot of really cool vlogs and card show pickups and all this sort of stuff at the National. I cannot wait to get to on my own, so I'm not hating on it anyway. I'm just highlighting some of this negativity so you guys can learn from it and maybe not fall victim, like I said, to these sorts of scams and shenanigans. Now, the first thing I want to touch on is this $80,000 card theft that you've probably all heard of by now. If you haven't, essentially there was this dealer who has dealt with this customer multiple times. This customer came up to his table, identified a few vintage cards that he wanted to pick up. They chatted back and forth. Eventually, the person said, okay, here's a bunch of cash that I really want to get for these cards, about $100,000 worth of cash. He picked out $80,000 worth of vintage cards, had a look at them, said to the guy or to the dealer, do you mind if my son looks at these? Took him over to his son, who was a couple of booths down, came back with no cards. Obviously, the seller had apparently a bag of money and is in 400 count card boxes, apparently it was. They chatting for a few hours. Eventually, the guy's like, where's your son? He goes, oh, let me go look for him, and then does a runner. And then apparently the next day, the guy still was waiting, a bit of a no-show, something along those lines, finally opens the bag of money, and there's only, $1,000 in there in $1 bills, and basically contacted the police. And this one's a bit weird because the dealer basically said he's dealt with this customer many times before for very high money deals, and is a bit unsure as to what actually happened, which I thought was a bit strange, right? Like, firstly, it's a bit strange to try and steal some cards at the card show this big, right? When you got so many cameras around, and like, I'm sure someone's caught him, but it's just a bit weird how, the seller didn't feel comfortable enough to check the money that in there when the person took $80,000 worth of cards away from his table. Irrespective of whether you've dealt with this person in the past, like, you should always be, trying to maintain a certain level of comfort. And this is how you avoid being screwed over. And I can almost guarantee that the reason why he didn't do it is because he obviously felt comfortable with this guy and didn't want to offend him. Like, don't be afraid to offend someone, to check the money before, or count the cash or whatever before anything exchanges hands. Yes, the deal wasn't done, but if that amount of money leaves your table, surely you'd check the bag. And I know there's a lot of people, conspiracy theorists on social media saying maybe the seller was in on it. I don't quite understand that. It just seems a bit strange how someone would like steal these cards so brazenly, right? You're going to get caught. They know who you are. It's just so weird. So I just also don't understand. Like, some people are too scared to offend the person by checking the money. Like, if somebody that you're doing a deal with is going to get offended by you raising that question or you counting the cash, don't do the deal with them, because that's a red flag in my opinion. Like, I understand those things hinder on you maintaining a good relationship with someone, but you need to protect yourself at the end of the day. And personally, if I was selling something to someone or I was buying something from someone and they wanted to check or they wanted to count the money 5 times, I'm not going to hate them on that. I'm going to let them do whatever they want to do to get their level of comfort, right? So a lesson for you all is, no matter how many times you've done a deal with someone, just maintain your level of comfort. Don't do anything you don't want to do. If you don't feel comfortable with those cards leaving your table, don't let those cards leave your table. And I know this guy did in this instance, but just be very careful. There's so many people out there, trying to take advantage of you. Keep in mind, like I've touched on in other videos as well, because the hobby basically blew up to where it did, prices are pretty crazy. So many people have like over leveraged themselves and all this sort of stuff. And now that prices are coming down, they're looking for ways. People are desperate. It's just really unfortunate. I really hope this guy gets his cards back and then, we can move on. It's just a really unfortunate situation. Please let me know your thoughts down on this in the comments below. If we do hear more news on this, I will flag it in one of my weekly news videos. Now, the next thing I want to touch on is something I spoke about in my weekly news video, and that was a resealed box of 2012 Prizm that was busted out at the National. Now, this was really unfortunate because it was resealed, it was opened up on camera, and it turns out there was packs of Austin Powers in there, not 2012 Prizm basketball. Now, since that video, basically the breaker has got his money back, and he has got in contact with the person he sold it with, obviously, to get his money back, and they're both dumbfounded as to how this basically got through the cracks, right? How they didn't pick up on it, because apparently the wrapper was really, really good. And this is just one of those things where if you want to buy this kind of wax, if you want to buy a high-end product, because this is obviously expensive, 2012 Prizm, first-year Prizm, $15,000, $35,000, whatever it is. Like, unless you've experienced or handled that product pretty regularly in the past, you probably shouldn't be picking it up, right? Because for all you know, because you haven't touched the product yourself, you don't know what like a genuine wrapper would feel like from 2012. Maybe that was the easiest thing to spot. You don't know how that was sealed back then. Again, maybe that was something else that was really easy to spot. If you want to be picking up this sort of stuff, you need to go through a service that actually understands how it actually works, or go through a really close friend or a close card shop or close dealer or something along those lines that you can trust for sure, that has handled this sort of product before, or has done a copy of this box that you can compare back to make sure, you know, the seal fits, the fill feels the same. It looks genuine, right? And I know I did a video on Baseball Card Exchange the other day talking about how they don't really provide much value for unsealed wax, especially vintage wax like 86 Flea. Like, yes, pack authentication provides a lot of value, but when they wrap a box, it doesn't really give you comfort that those 36 packs are original to that box. It's not searched, so on and so forth. But for modern product, they do provide value because Steve and BBCE have handled this product. They're a store, right? They have this stuff on hand. They can compare back to and tell you if the seal is not accurate and so on and so forth. So if you want to pick up this sort of wax, like, please be using those kinds of services to try and guide you, right? And yes, still be a bit wary of going through them because you can never trust anyone 100%, but you need to be going through people that know what this product feels like. You need to go through these people that know what the seals look like, right? You can't be buying a box like this yourself and expecting it to be accurate because there's people out there that are trying to scam you. And like I said in my video on the weekend, these box breaks are going to keep being preyed upon by these scammers because they're going to keep making fake boxes and sending them to people because the money to be made is ridiculous. Boxes are $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 plus. Of course, people are going to try and scam you. And if you're taking things on face value and you're taking people for their word, you're probably positioning yourself to be, you know, in a bad spot. And I know that's a really sad thing to say because ideally you want to be having, you know, nice relationships with people and nice, you know, deals and so on and so forth. But the world's not a nice place, unfortunately. There's so many scammers out there, especially when there's this amount of money to be made. So when you're buying this sort of product, please go through people that you can trust 100%. Please try and get comparatives on hand to compare that the boxes are matched, the seals match, so on and so forth. Please do that sort of stuff because if you don't, you're going to get burned like this person. And this individual was very, very lucky that they were able to get their money back, right? And it's just really unfortunate. But again, please learn from it and please try not to make the same mistake. And the last thing I want to touch on is breakout cards. And this is a pretty cool YouTube channel that I'm sure you've all seen in the past, but they do a lot of really cool stuff on vintage cards and identification of fake cards and things like that. And they, as part of attending the National, they walked around and identified quite a few fake cards in people's showcases. And now this is not something that's overly surprising, really, right? When you've got this many people at a card show, chances are you're bound to get some cards that are fake, considering people, you know, buy things in bulk, so on and so forth. But again, it's one of those things that if you don't know what you're targeting, if it's a high-end card, if it is a vintage card, please try and target things that are already graded, right? Because people out there are being disingenuous, and maybe some of these sellers that he identified they had it by mistake, right? But you guys get the point. You got to be on your toes is what I'm trying to say. Please be on your toes when you're looking at this stuff. If you've never bought a high-end card before, if you've never bought a vintage card before, and it is an expensive card, please try and get some guidance from people that you know are experts in that field. Like, if you're looking at like RPAs, big RPAs, Wax Museum Podcast has that checklist where he shows some of those ones that have been patch swapped. Use those kinds of services to try and guide you in making an informed decision, right? Because like I said, so many people are out there scamming these days. You need to be on your toes. And like I said at the very start of the video, I know I've just touched on 3 negatives, scams and shenanigans that occurred at the National, but obviously a lot of really cool stuff did happen. Please don't take this as being negative. Like I've said in the last few videos, I'm just trying to educate people. I'm trying to highlight things. Let me know your thoughts on any of these 3 points and scams, shenanigans, whatever you want to call them, from the National. It's really disappointing to see, to be honest. So yeah, please share your thoughts on any of these points down below. Like I said, it's really disappointing to see some of this stuff, but I'm trying to educate as many people as possible. I don't want to keep harping on the same sort of things, but when they do come up, I need to talk about them so you guys can be aware. So please, like I said, share your thoughts on any of these down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.